All right, I'm going to read one paragraph, and I know I promise not to just constantly read commentaries out to you. But in the introduction to the book of Leviticus and the Chumash, it talks about the different things that are in the book, and the second paragraph is on holiness. And I thought it was rather insightful, so I'm going to go ahead and read it to you. The other fundamental thought of the book is holiness, purity of life, purity of action, purity of thought, befitting a priestly nation. All the precepts in Leviticus are merely a translation into terms of daily life of the divine call. You shall be holy, for I, Yahweh your God, am holy. Yeah. Holiness is an active principle, shaping and regulating every sphere of human life and activity. In chapter 19, the demand, you shall be holy, is included in a series of sublime ethical doctrines. In chapter 11, it is embodied in the dietary laws. The rules of holiness govern the body as well as the soul, since the body is the instrument through which alone the soul acts. The holy people of the holy God was to keep itself free not only from moral transgressions, but also from ceremonial defilement, which would weaken the barriers against the forces of heathenism and animalism that on all sides menaced Israel. So often nowadays, we don't think about physical holiness as being all that important. We're trying to be spiritual. Well, physical and the spiritual go hand in hand. Okay? I used to wonder about the question, can the unclean hand wash the unclean body? It's an interesting question. And if you're really cleaning, you're going to wind up with both a clean hand and a clean body. Okay, but if you're just smearing a dirty hand over yourself, you're going to make yourself dirty all over. God wants us to be pure in every aspect of our lives. And what we'll be reading this morning will be at least part of what's called the Torah within the Torah. And it's, instead of being long paragraphs with explanations, what you're doing is you're getting the law of God in machine gun fashion. One law right after the other, after the other, after the other. Most people would probably find this boring, but if you're really interested in holiness and living a holy life, these laws define what holiness is. And holiness is not some weird experience, it's a way of life. Okay? And we're going to start in chapter 16, which, as you all know, is the Yom Kippur passage. And we'll keep reading from there.
What book are we in?
Leviticus.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to keep working. We're doing our Torah cycle, and Leviticus got kind of interrupted. Well, I'm going back to Leviticus now and hitting, the key points in it that we really apply to. We kind of steered clear of the diagnosis of leprosy and the different kinds of itches and rashes people got, because we have doctors now, and when I read it totally doesn't mean a thing to me. One year we went through it and we had Kathy here, and she was telling us what diagnosis the different rashes were, and that was tedium ad nauseum. But at least I finally got to understand a little bit more about it. Chapter 16. Now Yahweh spoke to Moses after the death of the two sons of Aaron, when they had approached the presence of Yahweh and died. By the way, I'll mostly just be reading this. If you have a question or a comment, just squawk like a duck, and I'll call on you.
I haven't heard duck squawk.
You haven't heard a duck squawk? Oh, come on. They just have to be angry to give you a good squawk. Go step on their nest and see if they don't squawk at you. I know, usually chickens squawk, right? Okay, so 16:2. Yahweh said to Moses, tell your brother Aaron that he shall not enter at any time into the holy place inside the veil, before the mercy seat which is on the ark, or he will die. For I will appear in the cloud over the mercy seat. Aaron shall enter the holy place with this, with a bull for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. He shall put on the holy linen tunic and the linen undergarments that shall be next to his body, and he shall be girded with the linen sash, and attired with a linen turban. These are holy garments. Then he shall bathe his body in water and put them on. He shall take from the congregation of the sons of Israel 2 male goats for a sin offering, and 1 ram for a burnt offering. Then Aaron shall offer the bull for the sin offering, which is for himself, that he may make atonement for himself and for his household. He shall take the 2 goats and present them before Yahweh at the doorway of the tent of meeting. Aaron shall cast lots for the 2 goats, 1 lot for Yahweh and the other lot for the scapegoat. Then Aaron shall offer the goat on which the lot for Yahweh fell, and make it a sin offering. But the goat on which the lot for the scapegoat fell shall be presented alive before Yahweh to make atonement upon it, to send it into the wilderness as a scapegoat. Now there's an interesting use of the word atonement. Atonement usually means a covering. Okay, to cover over sin, and so Messiah would actually pay for it. But in this case, it's being applied to the goat. The sins are going to be transferred to the goat, and the goat's going to be chased out into the wilderness, okay, carrying the sins of Israel away from them. Verse 11. Then Aaron shall offer the bull of the sin offering, which is for himself, and make atonement for himself and for his household, and he shall slaughter the bull of the sin offering, which is for himself. He shall take a fire pan full of coals of fire from upon the altar before Yahweh, and the 2 handfuls of finely ground sweet incense, and bring it inside the veil. He shall put the incense on the fire before Yahweh, that the cloud of incense may cover the mercy seat that is on the ark of testimony. Otherwise he will die. What I see here really is the cloud of smoke is obscuring the very image of God above the ark, so that he's not looking directly at God. Okay, because everybody has this idea that when you meet God really face to face, you're going to die. So here you have a smoke obscuring things. Moreover, he shall take some of the blood of the bull and sprinkle it with his finger on the mercy seat on the east side, also in front of the mercy seat. He shall sprinkle some of the blood with his finger 7 times. Then he shall slaughter the goat of the sin offering, which is for the people, and bring its blood inside the veil, and do with its blood as he did with the blood of the bull, and sprinkle it on the mercy seat and in front of the mercy seat. He shall make atonement for the holy place because of the impurities of the sons of Israel, and because of their transgressions in regard to all their sins. And thus he shall do for the tent of meeting, which abides with them in the midst of their impurities. Now, isn't it interesting that everything involved in Yom Kippur has to be purified by blood? I mean, the tent, the priest, everything involved has to be tainted with blood, to purify it. When he goes in to make an atonement in the holy place, no one shall be in the tent of meeting until he comes out, that he may make atonement for himself and for his household and for all the assembly of Israel. Then he shall go out to the altar that is before Yahweh and make atonement for it, and shall take some of the blood of the bull and of the blood of the goat and put it on the horns of the altar on all sides. With his finger he shall sprinkle some of the blood on it 7 times and cleanse it, and from the impurities of the sons of Israel consecrate it. When he finishes atoning for the holy place and the tent of meeting and the altar, he shall offer the live goat. When Aaron shall lay both of his hands on the head of the live goat and confess over it all the iniquities of the sons of Israel and all their transgressions in regard to all their sins, and he shall lay them on the head of the goat and send it away from the wilderness by the hand of a man who stands in readiness. If you ever wondered why sometimes at Yom Kippur, if you use traditional liturgy, it has basically every sin you can think of and we say, we have or I have committed this, okay? Because as the people of God, we are a nation, okay? We're connected, okay? So whereas I may not have individually done it, someone of us has done it, and so we're confessing as a single person. Verse 22. The goat shall bear on itself all their iniquities to a solitary land, and he shall release the goat in the wilderness. Then Aaron shall come into the tent of meeting, and take off the linen garments which he put on when he went into the holy place, and shall leave them there. He shall bathe his body with water in a holy place, and put on his clothes, and come forth, and offer his burnt offering and the burnt offerings of the people, and make atonement for himself and for the people. Then he shall offer up in smoke the fat of the offering of the altar. The one who released the goat as the scapegoat shall wash his clothes and bathe his body with water. Then afterward he shall come into the camp. Interesting that when you're doing a holy deed, you can get dirty. Okay, he's leading the goat out into the wilderness, but he becomes defiled and has to wash. It's just like with the water purification with the red heifer. Everybody involved with it becomes defiled and has to be separated for a time and go through a cleansing ceremony. Okay, it's kind of like God leaves us in the world to be a light in the world. Do we get contaminated by being in the world and being out around everything that's sinful? Sure we do. Okay, and that's why the temple also had to be cleansed and consecrated, because the people who are ministering there have to go out in the world and come back, and they bring defilements with them. Okay, so everything needs to get cleansed. Verse 27. But the bull of the sin offering and the goat of the sin offering, whose blood was brought in to make atonement in the holy place, shall be taken outside the camp, and it shall burn their hides, their flesh, and their refuse in the fire. Then the one who burns them shall wash his clothes and bathe his body with water, then afterward he shall come into the camp. This shall be a permanent statute for you. In the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, you shall humble your souls and not do any work, whether the native or the alien who sojourns with you. For it is on this day that atonement shall be made for you to cleanse you, and you will be clean from all your sins before Yahweh. Now it's interesting. It doesn't say you're going to do this until the Messiah comes and is a sacrifice. And then you're going to stop doing it. And it says it's a permanent ordinance. But the thing is, we can't do it today, can we?
No.
Why not?
There's no temple.
There's no temple. Okay, we are in exile. We have no temple. We cannot do this. Okay, if the temple was up, I would be happy to participate in this. Okay, because God says to do it. Do I believe that this is a greater payment for sin or covering for sin than what the Messiah has done? No, not at all. In fact, what's interesting is the book of Hebrews confirms that Yeshua is the Yom Kippur sacrifice. Okay. Did he die on Yom Kippur? No, he died on Passover. But what's interesting is when you read the servant songs in Isaiah, it seems like when Messiah comes back, I believe he's going to come back on Rosh Hashanah. Okay. He's going to apply the blood of the lamb, of the Messiah, to cleanse the lamb on the day of Yom Kippur, and then shortly after that begin to live amongst his people, remembering the Feast of Sukkot. I think that's the progression that things are going to happen in the second coming. Okay, so whereas he may have died and paid for sin on Passover, he's applying it to Israel at Yom Kippur. If that makes sense to you, think about it. If not, ignore it. I'm happy to have you ignore my opinions. Verse 31. It is to be a Sabbath of solemn rest for you, that you may humble your souls. It is a permanent statute. So the priest who is anointed and ordained to serve as priest in his father's place shall make atonement. He shall thus put on the linen garments, the holy garments, and make atonement for the holy sanctuary. And he shall make atonement for the tent of meeting and for the altar. He shall also make atonement for the priests and for all the people of the assembly. Now you shall have this as a permanent statute. Now, how many times was that?
Forever.
3 times. Remember, Eastern thought, if you really mean something, you say it 3 or more times. It's just said it 3 times. This is a permanent statute. Of course, until the New Testament writers come along and do away with it, right? No. Now you shall have this as a permanent statute to make atonement for the sons of Israel for all their sins once every year, just as Yahweh had commanded Moses, so he did. Okay, chapter 17. Then Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and to his sons and to all the sons of Israel, and say to them, This is what Yahweh has commanded, saying, Any man from the house of Israel who slaughters an ox or a lamb or a goat in the camp, or who slaughters it outside the camp, and has not brought it to the doorway of the tent of meeting to present it as a sin offering to Yahweh before the tabernacle of Yahweh, blood guiltiness is to be reckoned to that man. He has shed blood, and that man shall be cut off from among his people. The reason is so that the sons of Israel may bring their sacrifices which they are sacrificing in the open field, that they may bring them in to Yahweh at the doorway of the tent of meeting to the priest, and sacrifice them as sacrifices of peace offerings to Yahweh. The priest shall sprinkle the blood on the altar of Yahweh, on the doorway of the tent of meeting, and offer up the fat and smoke as a soothing aroma to Yahweh. Now, here's why. They shall no longer sacrifice their sacrifices to the goat demons with which they have played the harlot. This shall be a permanent statute to them throughout their generations. Okay, you're bringing anything you kill to the tent of the door meeting so it can be dedicated to Yahweh. He's changing long-held practices. Because even after they've seen all the miracles Yahweh did in coming out of Egypt, even though they're seeing the manna and everything else, and they've got the temple, there are people who are still going out into the fields and offering sacrifices to idols. And even at the end of the 40 years, Moses tells them, okay, now get rid of those idols. You go to the book of Joshua, and everybody likes to quote Joshua 24 or whatever. But as for me and my house will serve the Lord. Well, right before that, he reminds them, hey, get rid of those damn idols you've been hanging on to. It's time. It's been over 40 years. You've seen what God is doing. Get rid of the false gods. There's one God. Worship the right one. Then you shall say to them, Any man from the house of Israel or from the aliens who sojourns among them, who offers a burnt offering or sacrifice, and does not bring it to the doorway of the tent of the meeting to offer it to Yahweh, that man shall also be cut off from among his people. And any man from the house of Israel or from the aliens who sojourn among them, who eats any blood, I will set my face against that person who eats blood, and will cut him off from among his people. For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you on the altar to make atonement for your souls. It is the blood by reason of the life that makes atonement. So it's one life is sacrificed for the other life. One dies, the other might live. You shouldn't eat the blood because it's representative of the life. Therefore I said to the sons of Israel, No person among you may eat blood, nor may any alien who sojourns among you eat blood. So when any man from the sons of Israel, from whom aliens who sojourn among them, in hunting catches a beast or a bird, which may be eaten, he shall pour out its blood and cover it with earth. For as the life of all flesh is blood, is identified with its life. Therefore I shall say to the sons of Israel, You are not to eat the blood of any flesh, for the life of all flesh is in its blood. Whoever eats it shall be cut off. When any person eats an animal which dies or is torn of beasts, whether he is a native or an alien, he shall wash his clothes and bathe in water, and remain unclean until evening, then he shall become clean. Something interesting I just found out this past week. If you skin a pig and you have a cut on your hand, there's a bacteria that you're going to get, and it can be deadly. So when you skin a pig, and maybe other animals too, you need to wear gloves. Because he's talking about if you eat something that's torn by beasts or found dead on its own, of course they're not supposed to eat a pig anyway, but it's a sign of uncleanliness. But if he does not wash them or bathe his body, then he shall bear his guilt. And in chapter 18, this is where we start getting into the machine gun techniques. Okay? Then Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel and say to them, I am Yahweh your God. You shall not do what is done in the land of Egypt where you live, nor are you to do what is done in the land of Canaan, where I am bringing you. You shall not walk in their statutes. You are to perform my judgments and keep my statutes, to live in accordance with them. I am Yahweh your God. Now, I want you to notice that phrase, I am Yahweh your God, because that's going to occur repeatedly through here. And in a couple of places, it's going to say, you should be holy as I am holy. Now, I don't know how things are in heaven, but being holy like God is holy, he doesn't do any of these things that they're telling people not to. Evidently, the rule of heaven is not to do these things. But it was the common practice of the pagan nations to do all this stuff. And God is saying, don't be like them. Verse 5. So you shall keep my statutes and my judgments, by which a man may live if he does them. I am Yahweh. Now, does that verse say that you're going to go to heaven? No. No. It's that you may live. Okay, people that interpret keeping the law as a way of salvation obviously don't read very well, because nowhere is eternal life given for keeping the law. Nowhere in Scripture is that taught. It's a misconception. It probably began with some of the Jews and then spread into the Gentile church, thinking that if you want to keep the law, you're trying to earn your salvation. Hogwash. Genesis 15:6. Abraham believed God and was counted to him for righteousness. It didn't say he kept the law to be righteous, no. But if you want to live, if you want to have a blessed life, you keep the law. Verse 6. None of you shall approach any blood relative of his to uncover nakedness. I am Yahweh. Okay, so to uncover nakedness means to have sex with. It's a euphemism. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father, that is, the nakedness of your mother. She is your mother. You are not to uncover her nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's wife. It is your father's nakedness. The nakedness of your sister, either your father's daughter or your mother's daughter, whether born at home or born outside, their nakedness you shall not uncover. The nakedness of your son's daughter or your daughter's daughter, their nakedness you shall not uncover, for their nakedness is yours. The nakedness of your father's wife's daughter, born to your father, she is your sister. You shall not uncover her nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's sister. She is your father's blood relative. By the way, do you notice that we don't do any of these things anymore?
Yeah, right.
No, I mean, this is not common practice to sleep with your father's wife, okay?
Yeah.
Yes, is it happening in the country?
Yes.
But the church took this law seriously for a long time, and our laws are based on what Scripture says. It's so uncommon now for any of these laws to be broken that it doesn't cross our mind to do most of it. Just like the law of the kosher law. The law of the kosher law, when the Puritans and things set up here, kind of flowed over naturally into the way Americans eat until it changed. Things liberalized. Verse 13. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister, for she is your mother's blood relative. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your father's brother. You shall not approach his wife. She is your aunt. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your daughter-in-law. She is your son's wife. You shall not uncover her nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your brother's wife. It is your brother's nakedness. You shall not uncover the nakedness of a woman and her daughter. You shall not take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to uncover her nakedness. They are blood relatives. It is lewdness. Now, there's a word you don't hear much about. You shall not marry a woman in addition to her sister as a rival while she is alive to uncover her nakedness. Also, you shall not approach a woman to uncover her nakedness during her menstrual impurity. You shall not have intercourse with your neighbor's wife to be defiled with her. You shall not give any of your offspring to offer them to Molech, nor shall you profane the name of your God. I am Yahweh. You shall not lie with a male as one lies with a female. It is an abomination. Also, you shall not have intercourse with any animal to be defiled with it, nor shall any woman stand before an animal to mate with it. It is perversion. My best friend's wife traveled to Mexico with her aunt, and she saw a show showing a horse and a woman. She wanted to go and see the horse perform. Of course, she was a little girl. She had no idea what she was asking to go see, but her aunt understood that it was a woman having intercourse with the horse.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? That stuff is out there. Okay, you go to pagan countries like Mexico. Of course, they call themselves Catholics, but there's a lot that goes on in Catholic countries that, frankly, in America just wouldn't fly.
Or they integrate their old ways
Used to
with the new
fly.
ways.
What's that?
They integrate their old
so
ways
sure
with the new
anymore.
ways.
Yeah. Well, through a lot of the places where, in South America and Central America, the people made slaves out of the Indians, and they would mistreat them horribly. But if they converted to Catholicism, they had to treat them better. So there was a lot of false conversions just to get treated better, but they still kept their old ways. And instead of praying to the pagan gods they worshipped before, they would give them Catholic saint names. And all the Catholic saint names go back to pagan stuff. Saint Bacchus, for instance. John.
My mind is blank. It doesn't matter. They can always go to the priest, confess it, and they're all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, say 10 Hail Marys and you're good. Verse 24. Do not defile yourselves by any of these things, for by all these the nations which I am casting out before you have become defiled. For the land has become defiled, therefore I have brought its punishment upon it, so the land has spewed out its inhabitants. But as for you, you are to keep my statutes and my judgments. You shall not do any of these abominations, neither the native nor the alien who sojourns among you. For the men of the land who have been before you have done all these abominations, and the land has become defiled, so that the land will spew you out, should you defile it, as it has spewed out the nation which has been before you. For whoever does any of these abominations, those persons who do them shall be cut off from among their people. Thus you are to keep my charge, that you do not practice any of the abominable customs which have been practiced before you, so as not to defile yourselves with them. I am Yahweh your God. Okay, so this is all based upon the authority of Yahweh as God. I made a reference to Messiah's sacrifice being applied to Israel, okay, when he comes back. Okay, it actually says he's going to purify the land. What's this say? It says these practices defile the land. Okay, Yeshua has to go and purify the land because this stuff has been going on. Okay, so that purification has to take place before you can really set up, the new temple and the big cube, the New Jerusalem. Chapter 19. Then Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to all the congregation of the sons of Israel, and say to them, You shall be holy, for I, Yahweh your God, am holy. Every one of you shall reverence his mother and his father, and you shall keep my Sabbaths. I am Yahweh your God. Do not turn to idols, or make for yourselves molten gods. I am Yahweh your God. Now when you offer a sacrifice of peace offering to Yahweh, you shall offer it so that you may be accepted. It shall be eaten on the same day you offer it, and the next day. But what remains until the third day shall be burned with fire. So if it is eaten at all on the third day, it is an offense. It will not be accepted. Everyone who eats it will bear his iniquity, for he has profaned the holy thing of Yahweh, and that person shall be cut off from his people. Now when you reap your harvest and your land, you shall not reap to the very corners of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest, nor shall you glean your vineyard, nor shall you gather the fallen fruit of the vineyard. You shall leave them for the needy and for the stranger. I am Yahweh. Now, isn't it interesting that part of holiness is charity. Okay, you can always make more by reaping to the very corners of your field and getting every last bit of fruit. You can make more money, but God says, you're to be a holy people, you're to leave food for the poor. That's another one of those horrible Old Testament oppressive laws. Being kind to the poor. Verse 11, you shall not steal, nor deal falsely, nor lie to one another. You shall not swear falsely by my name, so as to profane the name of Yahweh your God. I am Yahweh. You shall not oppress your neighbor, nor rob him. The wages of a hired man are not to remain with you all night until morning. You shall not curse a deaf man, nor place a stumbling block before the blind. But you shall revere your God. I am Yahweh. That's another bad one. Don't play tricks on the deaf and the blind. I'm glad we're free of that one. You shall do no injustice in judgment. You shall not be partial to the poor, nor defer to the great, but you shall judge your neighbor fairly. You shall not go about as a slanderer among your people, and you are not to act against the life of your neighbor. I am Yahweh. You shall not hate your fellow countrymen in your heart. You may surely reprove your neighbor, but shall not incur sin because of them. You shall not take vengeance, nor bear any grudge against the sons of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am Yahweh. You are to keep my statutes. You shall not breed together two kinds of your cattle. You shall not sow your field with two kinds of seed, nor wear a garment upon you of two kinds of material mixed together. Now, that one always comes up as an interesting question. What do you mean you can't mix two kinds of material? Well, the only two materials they had were cotton and wool. So that's what the interpretation of that is. Don't mix cotton and wool, which I don't think anybody does that. At least not that I know of. Of course, I'm not a clothing manufacturer or any kind of stylist. But that's basically what it's saying. It's not talking about polyester, because polyester didn't exist. It's not talking about stretchy stuff you put in your undergarments so that they don't fall off. No, it's talking about wool and cotton. Now, if a man lies carnally with a woman who is a slave, acquired for another man, but who has in no way been redeemed, nor given her freedom, there shall be punishment. They shall not, however, be put to death, because she was not free. You know? That's always a tough one to deal with in the 20th century. But God accepts the world, in a sense, as it exists, and makes laws to be appropriate for the world that exists, not the one we wish existed. He shall bring his guilt offering to Yahweh, to the doorway of the tent of meeting, a ram for a guilt offering. The priest shall also make atonement for him with the ram of the guilt offering before Yahweh, and for his sin which he has committed, and the sin which he has committed will be forgiven him. When you enter the land and plant all kinds of trees for food, then you shall count their fruit as forbidden. 3 years it shall be forbidden to you, it shall not be eaten. But in the 4th year, all its fruit shall be holy, an offering of praise to Yahweh. In the 5th year, you are to eat of the fruit of its yield, that its yield may increase for you. I am Yahweh your God. You shall not eat anything with blood, nor practice divination or soothsaying. You shall not round off the side growth of your heads, nor the edges of your beard. You shall not make any cuts in your body for the dead, nor make any tattoo marks on yourselves. I am Yahweh. Things that I didn't know existed, like cutting yourself because of the dead. When we went to Oklahoma, that was a common Indian practice. You know, to show your mourning, you would cut yourself or do something to harm yourself. Okay? And I think when it talks about your hair, it's talking about shaping it in some kind of a pagan practice. Okay, the Catholics have their tonsures for different groups, and the ancient world, I'm sure, had special haircuts for different pagan practices. Verse 29. Do not profane your daughter by making her a harlot, so that the land will not fall to harlotry, and the land become full of lewdness. You shall keep my Sabbaths and revere my sanctuary. I am Yahweh. Do not turn to mediums or spiritists. Do not seek them out to be defiled by them. I am Yahweh. I had an aunt who made the mistake of going to Casadega and getting a reading that led to what destroyed the rest of her life. Okay, because she believed what the guy said, and therefore she made several very bad decisions and lost the entire fortune that her husband had saved up for her. Verse 32. You shall not rise up before the gray-bearded. You shall rise up before the gray-bearded and honor the aged, and you shall revere your God. I am Yahweh. When a stranger resides with you in your land, you shall not do him wrong. The stranger who resides with you shall be to you as the native among you, and you shall love him as yourself. For you are aliens in the land of Egypt. I am Yahweh your God. Okay, that's one of those laws that aliens are very weak and vulnerable to those who live in the country and have power and can employ them. And it's easy to cheat them because they don't know the system, they don't have the power and the money to hire lawyers. Most of the time when you have immigrant labor, it's because they're coming from a poor situation that they're trying to improve upon. They're not coming here because they're rich. Okay, it makes them vulnerable. And God says, don't misuse people. Treat them honestly. Verse 35. You shall do no wrong in judgment, in measurement of weight or capacity. You shall have just balances, just weights, a just ephah, and a just hin. I am Yahweh your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. You shall thus observe all my statutes and all my ordinances and do them. I am Yahweh. So that last part right there was just, if you're selling something, be honest. That's how simple it is. When you read the laws of Torah, if you're an honest, decent person, you wouldn't do it to break them anyway. It's only indecent people who break his laws. 1 Timothy 1:8 says the law wasn't made for the righteous, it was made for the sinners. And we'll conclude with chapter 20. Then Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, You shall also say to the sons of Israel, Any man from the sons of Israel or from the aliens sojourning in Israel, who gives any of his offspring to Molech, shall surely be put to death. The people of the land shall stone him with stones. I don't know if you know much about Molech. Molech was kind of like Baal in a sense, and his statue was a metal frame with arms tipping downward in the front. You would take and they would light a fire in the back of this thing and get it red hot, and they would put their baby in the arms of Molech, and he would roll down his hands, burning to death until he fell on the ground. It was a way to summon demon power. And there's one account where Israel was fighting against a city, and they were winning, and the king of the city decided to sacrifice his son to Molech, and then they couldn't beat the city. It was like they got extra power or something because they had a demon helping them. Okay. Verse 3. I will also set my face against that man, and will cut him off from among his people, because he has given some of his offspring to Molech, so as to defile my sanctuary and profane my holy name. If the people of the land, however, should ever disregard that man when he gives any of his offspring to Molech, so as not to punish him to death, then I myself will set my face against that man and against his family, and I will cut off from among all their people both him and all those who played the harlot after him, by playing the harlot with Molech. As for the person who turns to mediums and to spiritists to play harlot after them, I will also set my face against that person. and will cut him off from among his people. You shall consecrate yourselves, therefore, and be holy, for I, Yahweh your God, am holy. You shall keep my statutes and practice them. I am Yahweh who sanctifies you. It's interesting, God sets us apart, and how does he set us apart?
Do like the heathens.
But he sets us apart by his law, so that we don't do like the heathen. We're to stand out and be different. If there is anyone who curses his father or mother, he shall surely be put to death. If he has cursed his father or his mother, his blood guiltiness is upon him. If there is a man who commits adultery with another man's wife, one who commits adultery with his friend's wife, the adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. If there is a man who lies with his father's wife, he has uncovered his father's nakedness, both of them shall surely be put to death. Their blood guiltiness is upon them. If there is a man who lies with his daughter-in-law, both of them shall surely be put to death. They have committed incest. Their blood guiltiness is upon them. If there is a man who lies with a male as with a woman, both of them have committed a detestable act. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood guiltiness is upon them. If there is a man who marries a woman and her mother, it is immorality. Both he and they shall be burned with fire, so that there will be no immorality among your people. In my memory, this is the only place where anybody's ever burned to death. I don't remember any other references to that. If there is a man who lies with an animal, he shall surely be put to death. You shall also kill the animal. If there is a woman who approaches any animal to mate with it, you shall kill the woman and the animal. They shall surely be put to death. Their blood guiltiness is upon them. If there is a man who takes his sister, his father's daughter, or his mother's daughter, so that he sees her nakedness, and she sees his nakedness, it is a disgrace, and they shall be cut off in the sight of the sons of Israel, of the people. He has uncovered his sister's nakedness, he bears his guilt. If there is a man who lies with a menstruous woman and uncovers her nakedness, he has laid bare her flow, and she has exposed the flow of her blood. Thus both of them shall be cut off from among the people. Now, what I see in this verse is during the monthly cycle, eggs are released, okay, and in such a way that they cannot be fertilized and let to grow. So what I'm seeing here is kind of like an instantaneous abortion, where you might have a life given and then lost immediately. Verse 19. You shall also not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister or of your father's sister, for such a one has made naked his blood relative, they will bear their guilt. If there is a man who lies with his uncle's wife, he has uncovered his uncle's nakedness, they shall bear their sin, they will die childless. If there is a man who takes his brother's wife, it is abhorrent. He has uncovered his brother's nakedness, they will be childless. You are therefore to keep all my statutes and all my ordinances and do them, so that the land to which I am bringing you to live will not spew you out. Moreover, you shall not follow the customs of the nation, which I will which I will drive out before you. For they did all these things, and therefore I abhorred them. I hated them. Hence, I have said to you, you have possessed their land, and I myself will give it to you to possess, a land flowing with milk and honey. I am Yahweh your God, who has separated you from the peoples. You are therefore to make a distinction between the clean animal and the unclean, and between the unclean bird and the clean. And you shall not make yourselves detestable by animal or by bird, or by anything that creeps on the ground, which I have separated for you as unclean. Thus you are to be holy to me, for I, Yahweh, am holy. And I have set you apart from the peoples to be mine. Now a man or woman who is a medium or a spiritist shall be put to death. They shall be stoned with stones, and blood guiltiness is upon them. Okay. We're going to stop there.